This is Gemara Sanhedrin Daf Lamed Gimel. All the learning should be an incredible schos aliyas neshama for Bar Leib and Rav Ya'akov v'siyata d'shmaya. The Koyach HaTorah should bring an incredible aliyas nishmasli. As well as learning should be a schos refuah shlema for Tinoik ben Miri Mahuva v'siyata d'shmaya. We're holding on. Lamed Beis and Mid Beis. We are 3 lines into the wide lines as we quote the Mishnah. Dine Mamanis Apoische. The Mishnah said that there's a difference between Dine Mamanis and Dine Nefashais. Who begins the opening statements? Dine Nefashais, we go with those that are going to be Mizakeh, whereas Dine Mamanis, we could do either way. Begins the Gemara discussing the Dine Nefashais Heichi Amrinan. How do we say it to them? What should the Dayanim say? We just finished saying that the Dayanim should begin after hearing the Eidim, after cross-examining the Eidim. What should the Dayanim say to the Eidim? So says the Gemara, this is what they should say to them. Mi Yemar Kitkamritu. Who says it is like you said? Meaning, how do we begin? By defending the accused, by suggesting that maybe it was a little bit different. Says Ula, 1 second. But if you do that, no Eidim will want to give Eidos. Why? Because by pressuring them, they're going to feel like retracting. Says the Gemara, okay, let them be muzzled. Milai Tanya, do we now learn a Brayso of Shimon Elazar Aimer? Teaches Rav Shimon Elazar Masinas Eidim Imakaim Lemakaim. We move Eidim from place to place. Why? Kadesha Titra of Daitan. In order that their minds become unsettled, V'yachzur Bahen, and they'll retract. Meaning, we don't want anyone to be accused of such crimes. We don't want anyone to be convicted. So says the Gemara, yes. So let them back out. Says the Gemara, whoa. Mi dami. Over there, we move them around, and indirectly, they're going to feel the pressure. We're pushing them away with their hands, and now we cannot do. And therefore, says the Gemara, that is not the appropriate approach. So Ella Amar Ula continues. Ula Hachi Amrinan says Ula. This is what we say. Yeshcha Eidim Hazimam. We say to the one that's being accused, do you have Eidim that could discredit the other Eidim through their Hazama? Amrle Rabba says Rabba back to Ula V'chipaischa B'schusa Shalzeh. Shichayvasle Shalzeh. Says Gemara, 1 second. Yes, the Mishnah taught us that we start with the schos, but this is a schos that what is also a chiyuv. Because if there are Eidei Azama, Kasha Zamam, then the Eidim are going to get that which was coming, that which they were testifying. So in reality, it's not a schos, it's a chiyuv. Says Mar, 1 second. Do we have a chavasai? Is that really a chiyuv? V'tanan Eidim Zayim Neriginat Sheik Muradin. Eidim Zayim would never be killed themselves until there was a Gemar Din. So it's not really a chayva because it's not a Gemar Din yet. Says the Gemara, Hachi Amina. This is what I meant to say. Ilu Shasik Hayadik Merdina. If one word's have been quiet until the Gemara Din, and then you might say the Mazimlu, then Havli Chavashal, so that would be a chiv. So in a way, it's not appropriate to say, do you have Eidim Zaymim, which could get the ball going if he's quiet till the Gemara Din, and then bring in the Eidim Zaymim, which could cause and ricochet into a chayva. So I can't be Pshat in the Mishnah. So Ella Rabba, 4 lines to the bottom. Amrina Le, we say to them, Yishcha Eidim Lachisham. Not do you have Eidim Lahazimon, because Hazama is Kasha Zaman, that which they got. But do you have Eidim Lachisham? Says the Gemara, and that's what the Mishnah meant. That's how we begin with the zchus for the one on trial. Rav Kahana Amar, says Rav Kahana, second sham devrechem nizdake loini. We tell the Eidim by your words, such and such would be yizdake, meaning we give them a claim. We give them something to say. Tell the Eidim that there's a way they could be innocent, and then they begin their deliberations. A third shot, Abaye v'Rava Tzavayu, Amri le, we say to them, Eloi katalta, loi sidchal. If you do not commit the murder, don't be afraid. We begin the entire by telling them, don't be worried. We are going to get to the bottom of the MS. Finally, a fourth shot, Rav Ashi Amar, Kol mi she'yodea lo yischos. This is how they begin the din Torah. Anyone that knows a schos, Yavai v'yalam to love, come and say such a schos. And we conclude, says the Gemara, let's bring a riot to the third shot of Abaye v'Rava, Daning Moshe the Abaye v'Rava, as follows. Rabbi Omer, says Rabbi, this is by a kohen, by a saita, a woman that was accused of zina. If no one was with you, if you didn't commit such a crime, we could turn over to Lamigim Lamed Aleph Mikan. From here, what do we see? And this is a beautiful raya to the Pshat of Abaye v'Rava, because this is literally how they explain the Mishnah of Paischa L'Schos. So we have a brisa saying as such. Continues the Gemara, quoting the next part of the Mishnah. Dine mamanes machzirin v'chulu. Dine mamanes, when it comes to monetary disputes, those are cases that could be machzirin. Those are cases that could be reversed in need be, in both cases, both lizchos and lizakai. Asks the Gemara, Viraminu, I'll ask you a steer of a Mishnah in Bechayra Yistanis Adin Zik as a Chayiv, Chayiv is a Zakai Time as a Tar, Tir as a Tame. Masha Asa Vishale Mi Beisai. Says the Mishnah over there, that which is done, and you have to make up from yourself. So the Kasha being that we see over here, Alma, as the Rashi in the second line points out so eloquently and concisely, Lo Yadar, even if you messed up, Lo Yadar. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yosef, Lo Kasha, Kan b'mumcha, kan b'she'inoi mumcha. Says Rav Yosef, it's not a stira. Our Mishnah, we're dealing with a mumcha. A mumcha can indeed be chayzer, whereas by in b'chayros, we're dealing with a non-mumcha. And as we've seen, such a person cannot retract his verdict. Says Gemara, 1 second. Mumcha machzirin, really? Vakatani, emaya mumcha lebezdin b'iter milishalem. But it says over there that if he's a mumcha lebezdin, then he is pater. So what do we see? We see that whether he's a mumcha, whether he's a non-mumcha, you cannot back out over there in Gemara and B'chayros. Amrav Nachman, kan sheish gadol eimenu b'chachma u'b'minyan, kan she'ein gadol eimenu b'chachma u'b'minyan. Says Rav Nachman, when there's someone that is greater than b'chachma u'b'minyan, then he can retract, he can reverse a lower court's verdict. But if not, then it cannot be done. Rav Sheshes Amar, a second teretz, kan shetah b'dvar Mishnah, kan v'tah shikol hadas. A different type of tayis will dictate whether you can be chayzer. Which Amar Rav Sheshes Amar Rav Asi, tah b'dvar Mishnah chayzer. Says Rav Sheshes, if there's a tayis b'dvar Mishnah, then it is we reverse the verdict. Tah b'shikol hadas. If the tayis is b'shikol hadas, that's the Gemara in B'chayros, then einay chayzer, such a case is not reversed. It says the Gemara, Amar le Ravina le Rav Ashi. Says the Gemara, what is an example of what we just said? What is a tah b'dvar Mishnah? Says Ravina le Rav Ashi, afilu b'tah b'drav Chia v'Rav Aishia. Even a tayis with a brisa by Rav Chia and Rav Aishia, is that also considered tah b'dvar Mishnah? Amrle, yes, indeed, in. Afilu b'dravu d'Shmuel. Amrle, in. Afilu b'didi v'didach. Says Ravina Rav Ashi, even a din that we said over. Amrle, otu anan kotli kani ba'agma. Anan. So responds Rav Ashi, we reed cutters in our swamp. What do you mean? Our dinam also carry weight, says Ravina. And therefore, indeed, all these halachas are included in Tayis B'dvar Mishnah. Says the Gemara, so now, what's Echidami Shikol Hadas? So what is the case of a Tayis B'Shikol Hadas? Amar Ababa, Kegain, for example, Trei Tanayi or Trei Amarayu, Depliga Adadi. If you have a Machlaikes Tanayim or Amarayim, V'lo Yitmar, and it's not clear, Hilchos Lo Kamar V'lo Kamar, V'ekri V'avik Echad Minayu. and therefore someone a dayan went and paskin like one of them. But v'sugya de shemaitza ozli kehidach hainu shikaladas. The sugya, if the Gemara, if the rayas show the other way, that's a tayis b'shikaladas. That is going to be the cases that could and cannot be retracted. So Eisei Rav Amnuna Rav Sheishes. Rav Amnuna asked Rav Sheishes, Maisa Bipara. There was a story. Bipara with a cow. Shalbeis Menachem Shenitla Ha'im Shelah. The Maisa with the cow of Beis Menachem, whose aim, the womb was removed. V'hachila Rav Tarfin Liklavim. Rav Tarfin fed the cow to the dogs. Why? He fell to his treif. The story came from the Chacham in Yavne, and they said, indeed, such a cow, even without the womb, would not have been deemed a treifa. Shenemar tudu sarayfe. Why? Where do we see this from? Tudu sarayfe said, Ein para v'chazira yotzes melchzandria shel Mitzrayim. Says to the Zarayfe, a cow should not leave Alexandria Mitzrayim unless you get rid of the aim, the womb, so it should not give birth. But clearly we see that it's not an animal which is going to drop dead. We clearly see it. It's a viable animal. It's not a treifa. Amar Rav Tarfin. Rav Tarfin, realizing he made a mistake, says, Halacha chamarcha Tarfin. Says Rav Tarfin, your donkey is done, Tarfin. Amrli Rav Akiva, Potter ata. You are Potter. Why? Shekol amomcha l'rabim. Potter milishalim. Even though indeed you made a mistake, but the din is amomcha l'rabim. Says Rav Akiva, is Potter for paying for such a mistake. So now says the Gemara of Isa, says Rav Nuna to Rav Sheish, as if you are correct. Le malei tavid var mishnah, tavid var mishnah. Chayzer. Why don't you just say it's a Tos B'dvar Mishnah? Therefore you should be able to back out. Why are you saying, oh, I made such a mistake? And he just has to console him by saying, oh, you mum chalaram, you don't have to pay. But wait, Tos B'dvar Mishnah. Answers the Gemara, you know that it's included in what Rabbi Kiva is saying. Chad avoid kamar. Chad, the number one, the Tos B'dvar Mishnah. The number one, you're being Tos B'dvar Mishnah. The Tos B'dvar Mishnah, Chayzer. Void. Inami v'shikaladas to'ita, and even if you're going to tell, you know that no, it wasn't a tois b'dvar mishnah, it was a tois v'shikaladas. Even if you're going to tell me that. So both details are included. One second. He's not letting him get away with such a kasha. What was your kasha? Mi para. By the cow, he fed it to the dogs. If there was no way to be chayzer, what was your kasha? That it should be deemed the Tos B'dvar Mishnah. They were able to be chayzer. I don't understand. They already did. The animal's no longer. Says the Gemara, no. Achi Kamar Leisur Hamnuna was saying. If you're going to tell me, Tavidvar Mishnah cannot reverse Alma Kamdina, so we see the verdict stands. And then on that, Rav Akiva says to him, no, you're Mumchel Bezdin. Then the story makes sense. If you're going to tell me Tavidvar Mishnah is yes, Chayzer. You should say to him, give me lave para dinach, lav dina, v'loy klamavata, ashnami loy klamavata. So that's the reason why he should have, that's why he could have proven whether it is able to be chayzer or not. Continues the Gemara, let's go back. We began on the very top with a stira between our Mishnah with the Mishnah in Bechayrais. Says the Gemara, Rav Chisda, Mar Kanshenotal. Rav Chisda comes along to explain. Kanshenotal v'nasan biyad. The Mishnah B'chayris is the case which the Dayan took the money from one person, gave it to the other. And that's the reason why the Mishnah B'chayris over there said, you can't be Chayzer Shaloi. Kanshenotal v'nasan biyad. Whereas in our Mishnah, the Dayan didn't actually take money from one and give to the other, therefore he could be Chayzer, he could back out. So explain, ask the Gemara, I understand the case of Milchayris. They telling me that you're making the one that's not supposed to be liable chayiv. So it makes sense. He took it and he gave it to the other guy. Ella, however, Zika is a chayiv. If the case is talking about that he said the one that's potter is chayiv. If that's the case, it says Gemara, says that not avanas. You didn't do actually anything. You just said you're potter. If you're explaining to me the whole reason why you can't be chayzer because you actually gave it, but here you didn't give anything. Says the Gemara, kivan da'amar potter atam kimai. Shenatal v'nasam biyad dami, a big chiddush, because the whole varn natal nasam biyad is that you actually did a ma'isa to transfer ownership. Says the Gemara, making so in potter is like an act done biyadayim. Says the Gemara, l'masnizik dani dini moment is machzir ben zuz ben the chayva, but our Mishnah it says dini moment is can back out both cases. Bish lam l'schuz mishkach l'dam l'meikar chayev atah v'lo natal nasam biyad el chayva echem mishkachas la. Tamar le, he said, Padrata. But you just told me, you just told me that saying Pater is as if you gave it over. So how could that be a case that could be retracted? Chada katani. So says the Gemara, I'll explain to you, the Mishnah is teaching one case. The Dine Mamanis could be returned in a case of a schos lechayva, but not in the reverse case. Says the Gemara, the Kavasei Gabin Nefashais. Similarly, when it comes to Nefashas, Machzirin l'schos can be backed out to l'schos. Can be backed out if we are coming to acquit. Whereas, as we turn over to Lamigim Lebeis, vein Machzirin l'chayva. Machzirin l'schos, why? Schos gradesa. Vein Machzirin l'chayva. L'schos she'i chayva is in a case of a schos which has ramifications of a chayva, chayvasa, diman. But in such a scenario where there's a sidebar chayva, where there's a, we'll call it a ripple effect, chayvasa diman, whose chiyav are we referring to? Says the Gemara, leikasha chayvasa the goyal adam. The goyal adam, the avenging relative. Misham chayvasa goyal adam, says, I don't understand. Because of such a sidebar chiyav, we're going to not kill the person who's guilty. Says the Gemara, meaning we're not going to reverse from reversing, we're not going to reverse the verdict, and we're going to kill him. Says the Gemara, bain. What do the Mishnah mean by bain this or bain that? Says Markasha, that's indeed shver. Ravina Amar, another taretz kigayin shayala biyadei mashkin v'nala mimenu. Times atar, what's that case? The agu pei sharets. You touch the sharets here. Statamish everyone but beiraiseh. He mixed other people's fruit, which were tar, but he put in something which was a suffix, and that's a case of making something tar questionable. We continue with the next line of the Mishnah, which is dinin nefashes, which is when we could reverse cases when it comes to dine nefashes. And again, the din of the Mishnah was that din of fashais, we could reverse the psak if we're coming to be lenient, we'll call it, to acquit the person, but not if we're coming to convict. Tana Rabbanan, says the Gemara, what is the makar? How do we know if someone left the bezdin chayiv and they're taking him out to be executed? Someone screams out, I have something. So how do we know? We bring it back to Bez. We want to hear that argument in time. Loimar, Naki, and the pasuk says Al Taroik. Let's say Bezin says, no, you're not guilty. And so says, guess what? I have eidos. So we don't bring it back now. Loimar, Tzadik Al Taroik. Amar Rav Sima Barashi v'chilufa lemesis. And the opposite with regard to mesis, one who instigates others to worship idols, says the pasuk, do not pity him, do not cover for him. Rav Kahana Masni v'chiharek targenu. So by a mesis will be the exact opposite, that will bring him back in to make him chayav, but we will not if it's to make him pater. Says the Gemara. So we now know with regarding to reversing the din Torah by money all the time. By din nefasha is only lizake. Boy, mine Rav Zera, mine Rav Sheishes, Chayve Galiois. What is the story about Chayve Galiois? Someone who has to go to Galus. Can you reverse such a din? Asya Reitzeach says the Gemara. Chayve Malkius, Minai Mai, Asya Rasha Rasha. Taniachi Chayve Galus, Minai Asya Reitzeach, Chayve Malkius, Minai Asya Rasha. That when it comes to Malkius, we learn Rasha from capital crimes. When it comes to Galius, we'll learn it out from Dinei Nefashes. Ve'in machzir l'chayva, with regard to capital crimes, you do not bring him back l'chayva. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rav Yechlan. Teaches Rav Chia bar Abba in the name of Rav Yechlan, v'hu sheta b'davar she'ein hatzidoikim maidim bai. Says the Gemara, it's only when the Dayan made a mistake with something the tzedaikim do not agree with. Aval tov b'davar she'ein maidim bai. Zilkari Bey Rav, who says the Gemara, but if they made a mistake, saying that even the tzedaikim agree, meaning it's a literal pasuk in the Torah, then we can always be chayzer Zilkari Bey Rav, because something you can go read in school. It's so simple, it's black and white. We can be chayzer of such a thing in all cases. Based on that, if there was a mistake with regard to Noif and Uefes, Peasants said they're not chayv, they really are. What's the story? Amar lei adim moikdach yakid zil koitz karoch uslihi. Says the Gemara, your fire is burning, cut your cords and roast them. Why? Because this is something that even the Siddukim are masking, that niof, adultery, is also. Therefore, we can always be chayzer. It's Marnami, Amar Ravami, and Rav Yechon, Atabi Nayev, chayzer. Aleich, Idami, ain't chayzer. So what's the case that you're not chayzer? Says the Gemara, if the mistake was that they said the act was shalai kedarka, that is something which is not explicit in the Torah, and therefore such a case would not be retracted and reversed. We'll pick it up from Dinim Amanis in the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.